Logan is directed by James Mangold, and this is the final Wolverine movie starring Hugh Jackman. It also stars Daphne Keane, Patrick Stewart, Boyd Holbrook, amongst others. I got to see this movie a little early at the red carpet screening that took place in New York City tonight. It was a lot of fun. The cast and crew were there. It was a really great experience overall, and because this is an early review, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I really don't want to go into specifics here. Here's all you need to know. It's the year 2029. There aren't too many mutants around now. There are very few who remain. Logan is old, he's weary, he's very tired, he's pretty much done at this point. He's at the tether end of his life, pretty much, when it comes to living what happened in the past. The same thing goes for Professor X. He's pretty much done. These two are pretty much just living out the rest of their days. However, when this little girl shows up and she's being chased by some people, they have to help her out and they have to make sure she's fine, but it turns out she can do some stuff too. She's got some powers, and now we have our movie. This is the first Wolverine movie to be rated R, and I say this because this really influences this movie in many ways. So far we've seen Wolverine in many movies, but it has always been a rather clean version of him. We haven't really seen him go the distance when it comes to really doing something pretty violent. In this movie, they pull out all the stops. This is a violent, gritty, very dark, and very disturbing film at times. Logan really pulls out all the stops. This is a relentless movie, and I fucking loved it. James Mangold has done something incredible with Logan, and that is he's made it more of a character piece than trying to make it a movie about a guy who has claws and superpowers and healing stuff and all. He's tried to make it a more human story. This movie really does a good job of showing the human side of Logan. This is a broken character. We've seen him before in movies, fight his way through every single thing. He's been in countless wars. He has seen all kinds of shit. And when you see him in a movie like this, which is R-rated, and you see him as just this broken character who's just done with all that. He is not violent. He doesn't want to be violent anymore. He doesn't want to do all the things that he was doing before. It haunts him. When you see that aspect of him brought out, it suddenly creates a layer of the character that only was hinted at before. This is the time where we really see it blossom into something which is quite staggering, if I might add. Same thing with Professor X. We're given a side to him in this movie that I've never seen before. And it's heartbreaking sometimes to see this broken character of such a smart man. And when you see Professor X do so many amazing things with his mind in other movies and see him just broken down and done, it really hits because you realize this is it for these characters. There's really nothing more. They've seen it all. At one point in time, Professor X talks about the meaning of life and how Logan should take a moment and think about it because this is what life feels like, you know? People love each other. That's something I really liked about this movie. It is one of the film's underlining messages. It's a beautiful message, and I think that's where one of the biggest successes of this movie lies, in the fact that it tells that story and the fact that this is it. You should know what it's like. You should have time to think over it and to love it for what it is, not just live it day by day in regret and in pain. You should learn to appreciate it. And the theme of family that is brought in once X-23 comes into this movie is perfect. It's a very well handled theme. I think at times there are moments where you would expect a little more, but when you take into account what's going on in the movie, I understand why there are times where they decide to go a little quick at it, and I think what matters is that it does give me enough to care about the characters and their relationships so that when things happen, I care for him and I am invested in that. And it kept me interested throughout the movie, and I think that's perfect. This movie really succeeds in all the other aspects as well. As far as acting goes, Hugh Jackman is fantastic as Wolverine one final time. He does a great job in this movie. Sir Patrick Stewart is also great in this movie. He has a few really great scenes. Daphne Keane, she's 11 years old. She's fantastic in this movie. She has, again, some brilliant scenes, and she owns every single one of them. Also, the villains of this movie, Boyd Holbrook and Richard E. Grant, they were great. They all worked, and I think that's great. They were all really, really good in this movie, and they served a purpose. No one was expendable. That's another thing about this movie that's great, is that it all matters. Everything has a purpose to it. There is consequence to this movie. When the movie was about to start, the president of 20th Century Fox was talking about how James Mangold's vision was to have a movie that would be consequential. And I think in many aspects, this movie tries to give it a consequential approach when it comes to every single aspect. Everything about this movie has an effect. And I think that's great, because everything feels like it has a purpose by the time you're done with it. And I think that's perfect for what the film is trying to do when it comes to things that eventually start to happen. This is a beautifully shot movie. It looks absolutely gorgeous. The score by Marco Beltrami is also great. Everything about this movie technically is an A+. Everything works. The action sequences are very brutal. They are very R-rated. If I was to really dig for flaws, and I really mean dig, I think there were a couple of extra minutes of downtime where the characters were just there for a little bit. But when you really look back at the movie in retrospect, I understand why they needed that downtime, so it's really not a problem. The first act of this movie is great. The second act of this movie is also great. The third act of this movie is great. Every single thing about this movie works. And finally, no spoilers, has to have things wrap up. I think it's perfect. I think it's handled beautifully. There's really no problem I had with how they handled aspects of the finale, and I think it's very satisfying. I found it very, very well done. In the end, Logan was an action-packed, very emotionally wrenching, very well written, directed, and acted film. I loved this movie, and I'm gonna give this movie a 10 out of 10. On a side note, there is something that James Mangold talked about in an interview a few days ago about how when it comes to superhero movies, they tend to be put into their own genre. And that eventually people started looking at it from that point of view, that there's just going to be some silly comic book stuff along with the more serious stuff, but really it's all about that silly stuff. And how he explained that in the end, there is a lot of character to them, they just happen to have powers. I think he makes an excellent point. These are movies at the end of the day, proper movies. It's just that the characters have abilities, which is what just makes them superhero movies, I guess. So guys, I understand Logan isn't really out yet. I guess you guys haven't seen it yet. So what is your favorite X-Men movie of all time? What is your favorite Wolverine movie? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know. I got a lot more content coming out very soon as I get out of this suit. You guys are the best. Thank you so much as always for watching. If you like this, please subscribe, and I will see you guys later.